It's actually not. You think it is. And, early on, that was even back then, that was the thinking. If you have it in house, you control it. And as a builder, it was like a marketing thing. Hey, all of our labor's in house. So therefore our quality is going to be better. Our control is going to be better. It's really not. So what happens is you end up having to pay taxes, insurance, all of that, so whatever you're paying that employee by the hour or whatever their salary is, it's costing you 25% more than that for all your insurance, taxes and all that, benefits, things like that. Then you're providing the tools and the equipment, those types of things. And then, you're stuck paying for all of their mistakes, right? So if they miscut the lumber, if they break something, anything that goes wrong because of their, that they did, that's costing you as the owner, right? When you have it all in house. And then the worst thing of it all, or the most dangerous thing, is you end up with a lot of people on staff that you do things just to keep them busy because you've got them,
Okay, that makes sense. So,
so that's where you really can start, experiencing some slippage, not only in your material waste and theft and things like that, tools, materials, those types of things will disappear. But, the biggest thing is you're trying to keep people busy in between projects, and, you're just not using them to their fullest, most efficient for the amount of time that you're paying them. Right. So when we were the busiest and doing the most volume, I was making the most money and had the most time on my hands over my entire career. And I wasn't real profitable as a business when I had hourly employees. Once I switched to subcontractors, I started making money. And the reason was because now I went from me having to guess how long it would take one of my guys to get something done, even though I knew how long it should take, doesn't mean that's how long it's going to take. And when people are on the clock, right, it all pays the same. So when I switched to subcontractors, now it was, you're getting $500 for that, or you're getting $2 a square foot for this, or you're getting $8 a square foot for that, or you're getting $30 a board for the drywall, right? Whatever it was a defined number. We had a contract. It wasn't going to change unless there was a change order that was approved. So then I could drill down on my costs much better. And, in the rehab business, a lot of people say, oh, you don't know what your costs are, you're rehabbing. You can know exactly, if you know the business, like I said, if you educate yourself, you know exactly what everything in that business costs. If you're rehabbing houses and you're in an area where most of them are the same, a kitchen's a kitchen, paint's paint, roof's roof, you should be able to know exactly what those things are going to cost you. And you can get quotes from your contractors if you're using subs, but then you still have to have somebody to manage those subs. You still have to pay a project manager, to manage subcontractors. So we switched to that model. I still had some labor, and at 30 million, I had 20 employees, in our company, but they were all management. So two things happened. One, our time was no longer billable, right? So we were no longer earning based on time, because now we were leveraging subcontractors and then their ability to grow and scale. And then I helped them become profitable. So a lot of my employees, I turned into subcontractors. I just gave them my tools, and I helped them get their licenses and their insurances. And I turned them into subcontractors, and I coached them on how to do their business and how to price things and how to be successful. And they started making more money than I could pay them. So they were loving it, right? And they were self-employed. They could do their own thing. So that's kind of how I leveraged, and outsourced that, so that we were able to go from that 2.5 million was the most we did with 20 in-house hourly employees. And I still had 3 supervisors over them. So when I turned all the trade employees into subcontractors, we went from 2.5 to 7.5 million. Then we went to 12.5, then we went to 17, and we went to 30. And I had the same amount of supervisors over all of the subcontractors that I had over my hourly employees. So that shift alone took us from 2.5 million to 30 million just by outsourcing and using subcontractors. Then as I evolved in my career and the markets changed to post 2009, I switched to the general contractor model because there were a lot of general contractors that were looking for work, and it was cheaper for me to hire a general contractor to do my projects for me than it was for me to have a superintendent and then have all that overhead and pay subcontractors and do all that. And, a lot of people think in this business, if you're flipping, they think that by paying subcontractors directly or by having the labor in-house that they're saving all this money. And at the end of the day, when you sit down and you do the books and you put the slippage plus, the overhead cost and then the time, energy, and effort it takes to manage those pieces, and you calculate that opportunity cost, you actually save money by hiring a general contractor turnkey to do your projects for you. Okay. And, and if you get the right general contractor and you get the right systems in place and you work together and help them be more efficient and do their business better, which is what we did, that's when you really blossom. And then you can spend all your time on finding deals and doing the next deal and then doing bigger deals. So that's kind of how you progress and grow and scale, in a business. And it's just, I'm 51 now. I started out in 1997. I was in my 30s. It's 20 years of experience that I learned and watching the numbers and going through the motions. But I did what I did back then because all I knew was what I knew. And then as I grew, I started looking at, like I said earlier, find somebody who is where you want to be and learn from them. Some of my, top, people that I hung around were big developers. I'm talking, 500 million, 200 million, 500 million, $700 million guys doing like high rises and things like that. They weren't in-housing a thing, right? They're hiring general contractors.
Okay.
So at every level, that system works.
Okay.
And so I started watching what those guys were doing, and I started learning how to do business the way they were doing.